Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Hope you're doing well. Nowadays, we see more fragrance releases than ever before, it seems like. Just a constant influx of new fragrance lines, new fragrance flankers, new fragrance brands. It's just an avalanche of non-stop fragrance releases. But because of that, there are more discontinuations than ever before. And a lot of you may not even realize how many fragrances are being discontinued, because fragrance brands don't tell you, typically, when something is discontinued. They just let it slowly fade off into the distance. And then they never talk about it ever again. Like a bad relationship that they just want to forget. So yeah, discontinuations, they are always happening. Both big fragrance lines and small. A lot of times you don't even realize it's happened, like Cool Water Parfum came out not that long ago and for all intents and purposes seems to be discontinued. Acqua di Gio Profondo Lights, same deal. Came out, what, 2 years ago, I think? Or at least I'm pretty sure that one's been discontinued. Again, the brands don't really come out and tell you, hey man, just FYI, we killed that one, just so you know. So what I did for this video is I asked you guys on the community tab of my YouTube channel, what fragrance do you think is in danger of being discontinued sooner rather than later, and why? And I've got some of your answers here. 11 of them, technically, not 10, because I got a bonus one in here. I'll have all the fragrances that we talk about linked in the description. Feel free to check them out down there. Feel free to check out these codes over here. These will save you money if you shop at any of these websites. But let's go ahead and jump into it. And one word of warning, do not conflate popularity in the fragrance community with popularity at retail stores. They are completely different. So some of these fragrances that you hear about today from your fellow subscribers, you may think to yourself, nah, there's no way that's gonna be discontinued. It's too popular. But again, popularity in the fragrance community does not translate to retail sales, which is what these brands want. Okay, first up, Sir Siage Sniffington making another appearance. Definitely the most featured person at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if Hermes got rid of Terre Eau Intense Vetiver at some point. They did away with Eau Très Fraîche, that's true. And I can't imagine that Eau Intense Vetiver sells much more than that did. Yeah, I can't either. Plus, heavy vetiver scents can be a bit much for people not used to them. Also true. I just can't picture many non-frag head people choosing it over something like Eau Givre or the OG. I agree with pretty much everything you said. And I am one of those weird frag head people who does enjoy himself a little bit of vetiver. When I say a little bit, I mean a lot. Yeah, I actually think it smells great. I really, really enjoy it. To me, it's kind of like a modernized take on the OG Terre d'Hermes to an extent. Not as earthy, but it is more vetiver-y. But again, everything you said makes sense. For your average Joe, they're probably not gonna swing for this over Eau Givre or the original. They did, in fact, get rid of Eau Très Fraîche. I guess if we see something in the future from Hermes where they're announcing a new Terre d'Hermes and it looks like it would be used in pretty much the same times and spots and places that this one would be, maybe it doesn't bode very well for this guy. Kevin 073 up next says, it seems like the Prada L'Homme line could be on borrowed time. The Luna Rossa line is clearly the focus, while there hasn't been a new L'Homme flanker in years. Maybe they keep the OG and axe the rest. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's pretty much where we're at right now. The last flanker in the Prada L'Homme line came out 4 years ago in 2019, and it was Water Splash. Water Splash is fine, smells good, smells pleasant, but at the end of the day, not really a flanker that moved the needle much. You know, it kind of treads the same ground that Prada L'Homme Low before it did, only you got a different bottle, a larger bottle with Water Splash, so that's something. For sure, Prada is not concentrating on the L'Homme line right now. We're at the end of 2023, so I don't imagine we're gonna see a Prada L'Homme flanker pop out here over the next couple months, which means heading into next year, 2024, it will be 5 years since we've gotten a flanker in this line. Prada L'Homme Intense, which most people thought was the best one, can't really find that. I did a video about that actually when it started to go down, the whole Prada L'Homme Intense disappearing. Especially in the US, so that was great. Always cool to see the best fragrance in a line get destroyed, annihilated, axed, gadooshed. And then what was there? Prada L'Homme Absolute came out before Water Splash. That one also, can't find it. So yeah, I mean, you can find Prada L'Homme Water Splash and Prada L'Homme Low sometimes at discounters. But as far as this line goes right now, this is pretty much it. So unless they pop out a Prada L'Homme next year, again, 5 years since the last one, I wouldn't be surprised if this stuff does go away sooner rather than later, which I hate to say that because I love the fragrance, but honestly, it's just not done well. When you look at all the flankers that it's had, how many of those have been real sales hits? And again, we're not talking about the community. Obviously, none of them, or else they would still be around. So yeah, that one I could see, maybe even more so than Oh Intense Vetiver going away pretty soon. And a lot of you said that as well about this one. Up next, we've got Vlad Gornyonu. Gornyonu. I'm so sorry, man, because I know that's not how you pronounce it. He says, with the coming of Francis Kurkdjian at Dior, I really see the Homme line taking a turn. Francis Kurkdjian is far from the perfumery style Francois Demachet, so he might take this line in different directions. The first candidate would be Homme Parfum, which is already blacklisted for marketing. It's an enthusiast fragrance. Even in Europe, you can only get it on the Dior website and maybe a few stores in Paris. Hope this does not happen. This one also came up numerous times, and it does make sense. Dior has handed the reins over to Francis Kurkdjian, so he is now the mastermind behind the new Christian Dior fragrances. And you would assume that at some point he's gonna start reworking some of these fragrances, some of these lines that maybe aren't doing quite as well as they're big dogs, like Sauvage, and just all the Sauvages. This is Dior Homme 2020 here. This one, pretty recently reworked, so maybe this one is actually pretty safe. But as he says, Dior Homme Parfum, yeah, I could see that one completely being axed or reworked. But if it is reworked, then it would probably be part of a greater reworking for the 8 millionth time of the Dior Homme line. If they want to bring it in line with what everybody else is doing right now, the Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum type deal. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Dior hasn't really shown their cards on what they're doing right now as far as like these big lines. Maybe they leave them alone for a while. Maybe they start retweaking. We'll see. Dior Homme Parfum in general, as you correctly point out, as you astutely point out, is much more of an enthusiast fragrance. People that are really into fragrances think it's one of the best things of all time. Your average person, probably not as much. It is awesome though. Then we have Aaron 3V87, who says, with Armani simplifying the Acqua di Gio line like they did Code, I can see Profondo being discontinued. And this is another one, like the last two, that came up a lot. Yeah. If they do, hopefully they rebrand it as EDP Intense, or dare I say, Acqua di Gio Elixir. Well, yeah. If they do rebrand Profondo as Acqua di Gio Elixir, they're gonna have to change it up a bit, aren't they? Gonna have to really ramp up that power. Not that it's a weak fragrance. It's not at all for a freshie, but just the expectations that people have when something is an elixir fragrance, they're gonna have to just dial that one up to like a 12, just really intensify. You do make a valid point, kind of like we just talked about with the Dior Homme line, and that is the Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum elixir type deal, which is just everywhere right now. Now there's some variations, right? Sometimes instead of calling it parfum, they may call it a Le Parfum. Ooh, spicy. Now it's different. I thought you were just doing a standard parfum flanker here, but you threw a little Le in front of it, and now, that's something different. Or technically, I guess it would be what? Le Parfum. Le Parfum. But your point is valid. Profondo at this point, kind of an outlier in that line, so if they really do want to pare it down even more, simplify even more, they would do that. That being said, when I checked the bestsellers at Macy's and Ulta, other stores in the US, Profondo is typically the second bestseller in the Acqua di Gio line. So last time I checked anyway, which I don't have the year-end numbers for this year, so it's kind of flying in the dark just based off of reading the tea leaves. It looks like it's Acqua di Gio Eau de Toilette is the bestseller, then Profondo, and then Eau de Parfum and Parfum below Profondo. So if that holds steady, then maybe at that point they look at this one and they think, well, we are doing this whole simplification thing, but that is our second best-selling fragrance in the line. Do we really want to screw that up? So that could be the only saving grace in the short term, I think, for little Mr. Profondo here. Am I just trying to convince myself? I don't know, but I'm just saying. Then we got one from Rafa7364 who says, Dolce & Gabbana's The One line will go sooner rather than later. Ugh. Or if not the whole line, they will axe them all and keep one. Been a long time since Dolce & Gabbana brought a new men's line. I'd be excited to see what they could come up with after the hit that The One was when it first launched. Well, they did come out with K. That was 2019. so 4 years. So it's not been a crazy long time. Technically, K is a newer line than a bunch of other fragrance brands have right now. I mean, I'm always up for a new line of fragrances, right? So if Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Armani, Prada, Dior, Chanel, whoever wants to come out with a new line, I'm here for it, but it's not been a super long time for Dolce & Gabbana. That said, as far as new flankers in the One line, it's been a couple years. The One Gold was the last one, I believe, a couple years ago. And that one was, you know, it was okay, it smelled okay, it just didn't have very good performance. Their exclusive fragrances, like the One Luminous Night, fantastic, but difficult to find in the US because, you know, they're not made for the US market, so yeah, that's not really a surprise, is it? So with the One, I'm hopeful that this sticks around, the line itself, because we had one in 2021, then we had one in 2020, One Luminous Night, but there have been a couple years here and there where there's been no The One release. And I think back around like 16, 17, there were a couple years where there wasn't a release. It was sometime around there. So we've seen this before where there's been a couple years and nothing, but if we go the entirety of next year with no release, then at that point, I may start to worry. Up next, we got Snatchy McGrabberson, great name, who says, Azzaro wanted by night, if it's not already, gone at retailers and online, except occasionally at discounters, for half of what it used to be. Yeah, I think this one, probably out of everything we've talked about so far, is like, yeah. Wanted by Night, never a huge release as far as the general public. It's a fragrance that for people in the community was always viewed as a really good one, great bang for the buck, kind of a different style of fall and winter fragrance that still had a nice compliment factor to it. I really like the fragrance, I think it smelled great. Yeah, super nice. It was even nicer when it used to be crazy cheap at discounters, like under 30 bucks. But that is actually not a great thing for the company because if it's being liquidated to the point that it's going for just pennies on the dollar, essentially, that means it's probably not doing super hot at retail. I mean, you'll have some outliers here and there where that's maybe not the case, but I think that's what was going on here. The Most Wanted crushes Wanted by Night, has crushed Wanted by Night ever since it came out, both versions of the Most Wanted. So yeah, Wanted by Night, read those tea leaves. I think that's a pretty safe choice of fragrances going bye-bye. I need to back up actually, this is all I got. I got a half bottle. Phantom Spaceman says, Mr. Burberry. We can all see that ship sinking. Hero is obliterating it. You're not wrong. No, you are not wrong at all. Hero actually doing really well as far as sales goes, retail sales for Burberry. It's one that gets hated on sometimes for being like too simple, to this, that, the other thing. But it is, you know, kind of along the line of Dior Homme 2020. It's a woody, fresh, masculine scent. Not as aggressively woody as Dior Homme 2020 though, which to some people is gonna make it easier to wear. And then Burberry Hero Eau de Parfum, I think actually smells really good. Mr. Burberry just never could compete with the big blue fragrances, you know, it couldn't. It's a little classier, more aromatic, less sweet, and that did not catch on with audiences in a huge way. Nice little bow tie though. Winona's Big Brown Dragon 6121. Primus fan, kind of. My two predictions are Gentleman Eau de Parfum Boisé. Reserve Privé is outselling it, and the two were released so close together. It was probably done that way as a means to see which one would be worth keeping based on sales. And then Versace Oud Noir. Yeah, it's a favorite. Ash called this one a while ago. Hey, whoa. It's probably the least successful Versace fragrance, and I'm sure they're gonna want to vacate a spot to start pushing Eros Elixir in the near future. Yeah, Eros Elixir would not be a surprise to me at all. They've already got it set up for it. Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, Parfum. It's right there. And Eros is super popular. You know, it's one of the biggest lines in the world. So to see it kind of follow along in that trend, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I do love Oud Noir though. It's one of my favorite designer oud fragrances. I think it's fantastic. Presentation looks good. But yeah, I mean, the oud trend of every designer brand having an oud fragrance, that's pretty much dying out, isn't it? So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see that go away. And then with the Gentleman line, it also wouldn't surprise me to see some of those go away. Mainly because a lot of the fragrances are similar enough that for some people they're gonna be redundant. Not that, you know, Eros, Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, and Parfum are not redundant, since we just talked about Eros. But that's a very different market, I feel like. Different person gonna buy Eros versus Gentleman, right? Just talking about your average person at a store. That iris forward scent profile, it smells great and it has become more prevalent here lately, but it still is a little more of a smaller niche, a smaller subsect that's going after those. So Boise, probably of the Gentleman fragrances out there right now, yeah, that'd probably be the one on the chopping block for me too, if I were gonna say which one was most likely. And that one did come up multiple times as well, the Gentleman. Now this next one came up a bunch, a whole lot. It's from Ryan Briones 4026, who says, Stronger with You flankers. They'd probably simplify the line like they did in Code and Acqua di Gio. So Stronger with You probably came up more than any other fragrance. It didn't have the most upvotes, that was like these over here, but it still got mentioned over and over and over again. Most specifically, intensely, and absolutely. And there were also multiple comments from people saying that they've heard from this person or that person that intensely is going to be no more. Now, I myself have not bothered to look into this, to start, you know, going through everything and trying to see, oh, do I think it is, it isn't, whatever. But Stronger with You is a line that is massively popular in the community, and then not as massively popular, at least in the US, as far as retail sales go. It's not that it's like a terrible seller or anything, but it's just there is a difference as far as how popular it is in one subsect versus the other. So I can say that I hope it stays around. I think that Stronger with You has some great flankers. They do have a good amount of them, especially when you consider the exclusives, but just really solid, really good stuff. And I would like to see them stick around, but it is worth pointing out that lots of you out there think Stronger with You intensely and absolutely both are kind of on the chopping block. AB Pop says, hate to say it, but I could see YSL Kouros being discontinued, aside from a few gents who have been using it as a signature scent since the 80s, a few of us in the community, and perhaps a couple of museum curators. I can't imagine many people would be buying it. Yeah. Just putting it lightly. Having a cult following is not likely to be enough to keep it going. Just look at my beloved Mugler cologne / Come Together. Yeah, seriously. I hate to see any masterpiece get discontinued, but it does happen with some regularity. Everything you said is 100% accurate. And YSL, frankly, has a lot of fragrances that would be considered cult classics that are discontinued. Yeah, Kouros, I could see that pretty easily. It is a kickin' fragrance. It is a masterpiece fragrance. I agree with that. But when you're talking about sales, I can't imagine it's making them much or any money. And at the end of the day, that's what people are all about at these companies. And here's a little bonus one for you. It is from Moderwellen 932, the YSL La Nuit de L'Homme line, zero hype and seemingly only loved by the fragrance community. Low mainstream appeal. Personally, I love Blue Electrique, me too, and so does the community, but it isn't exactly a top seller. You're right, it's not a top seller because in the US it's discontinued. I know that you're somewhere where it's not, so I'm assuming somewhere in Europe, but yeah, it was discontinued in the US faster than any major release I have ever seen. Like, I've never seen a major brand release like that come out and get almost universal acclaim in the fragrance community and then be just immediately kicked into outer space. Just walk the plank, get kill hauled, get out of here. And truth be told, the La Nuit line, it holds a big place in a lot of people's hearts, right? Especially the original here. But when you think back to most of the flankers that have come out here over the past number of years, none of those outside of Blue Electrique have really moved the needle much. Sure, really wearable for the most part, good compliment pullers, easy going, but none of them like grab your attention. Again, except Blue Electrique for me. And La Nuit de L'Homme, I gotta say, when I look at all of my La Nuit de L'Homme flankers, they start to run together. Like in my mind, there's a couple that stick out, but most of them I'm just like, ah, dude, like they just kind of all fall together. So it's not a surprise that as time goes, a new flanker comes out, an old one gets discontinued, a new one comes out, an old one gets discontinued, and nobody seems to care other than Blue Electrique. So if YSL ever wants to step in and like truly clean up the L'Homme and La Nuit de L'Homme line, that wouldn't surprise me. All right, there we go. There are fragrances you think are gonna be discontinued, possibly in the near future. Some of these I definitely see 100%. Others I hold out hope. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.